All the songs you love, right here on Nova 103.5. Your life, your music. Gary Stroebel on The Business Report.
Welcome back to The Business Report. You're on Nova 103.5, and time now for the Market Watch and an interesting turn of events for local company Trustco. The Johannesburg Stock Exchange has lost its attempt to suspend Trustco from the bourse. The Namibian company brought an urgent application to the High Court in South Africa to stop the JSE from enforcing a decision by a financial services tribunal to suspend the company's listing. In addition to stopping JSE from suspending the financial services company, the trading in the shares in the financial services company, the court also restrained it from implementing the decision that Trustco restate its annual financial statements for the year ending 31st of March 2019. This is according to a statement issued by Trustco. Our guest this evening is Quinton van Rooyen Jr, the Deputy CEO and Alternate Director to the Group Managing Director. Quinton, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. Right, let's dig into it. This has been proclaimed by Sense and on your website as well as a victory against the JSE. This tussle's been running for a couple of months now. Just perhaps give us some context. The JSE had a financial services tribunal that ruled that you guys should be suspended. Trading in your shares should be suspended on the JSE. You fought that. You've gone to the High Court now, and you've had an urgent interdict to stop that suspension from happening. Is that correct? Just give us some context for how this has all come about.
Correct. The process you summarized is absolutely correct, but I think it's important to give some context to how we got here. And to summarize it in short, we have a difference of opinion on accounting principles. We are Trustco Group board together with our auditors and our independent advisors. And on the other side, you have got the JSE and the tribunal that sees IFRS application in a certain way. That difference of opinion have now led us all the way into the High Court of South Africa, where we now need an independent High Court to take a position on whose view on these accounting principles are correct. So that's the basis of the dispute with the JSE, but the effect it has, the JSE during that process wants to suspend the trading of the Trustco shares. And therein lies a lot of damage to shareholders, potential investors, and a lot of uncertainty. So the board has taken the JSE to task and to High Court so that we have clarity over these principles. Ultimately, for the group, whatever the court decides of how these accounting transactions should be treated, we will welcome. Keep in mind it's 2018, 2019 financials. It's way in the past. It changes nothing on the company level. But we want certainty about this IFRS applications. It's obviously critical for the integrity of the financial statements, and it's critical to the reputation of the company that we need certainty around this.
I mean, so one of the impact is obviously confidence. Share price is ultimately a measure of confidence in the company. Since the beginning of the year, we're down 71% from 114 to 46. There was a little bit of a spike yesterday on the news, and then the opening this morning down again. Of course, that's all quite volatile, so we can't take that too seriously. Let's dig into the issue quickly. The issue revolves essentially around valuation of property and moving it from one category to another in terms of
correct.
IFRS, and I've had many dealings with IFRS in my life, is an annoyance to most business owners, and some of the rules don't even really make sense as to. But it is an international standard. What is the harm in just restating it as per the JSE regulations?
Yeah, if we would love to restate and just continue with our lives. However, our independent external auditors have taken a view that if we follow the approach of the IFRS application that the JSE has, they will have to qualify our financial statements. So the board and the Trustco management sits a little bit between a rock and a hard place. The worst case position a company can find itself in is with qualified statements. So we have to follow the advice of our external auditors. For us, it doesn't matter which way it goes, we need certainty. So we cannot simply roll over and take the advice of the JSE at the expense of what our external auditors advice has given us. And ultimately, one must consider the board takes responsibilities for the financials that you sign off, not the JSE, not the auditors, nowhere else. So if the board signs off in a set of financial statements that the auditors disagree with, you can have all sorts of other havoc and proceedings pop up in its place. So for us, we cannot wait to have this settled whichever way it goes, but to simply take the restatement as as the JSE wants, will then open up another avenue of problems for us.
Okay. And has this stopped 2020 and 2021's audited financials from being accepted and being fine?
No, not at all. And I like that you asked the question, because 2020-21, we also published financial statements, also signed off by the auditors and also approved by the JSE and also approved by shareholders. So typically with a restatement, if you take a restatement, you must carry that forward into your next financials. So this is sort of in a vacuum, that 18-19 period, because if we restate, we have to carry that restatement all the way up to our present financial statements, which if it has to be done, then we do it.
Quite aside from a qualified audit, and we find public institutions all over Africa with qualified audits on a regular basis, and they continue functioning. Would a restatement materially affect the going concern nature of Trustco?
So let me take a step back. A qualified audit report triggers certain things. So if you get a qualified audit report on the JSE, you get automatically suspended. Keep that in mind. Qualified audit report also becomes an automatic event of default with lenders and borrowers in the group. So a qualified audit report by default puts the going concern status into question. So it's something you simply cannot roll over and do. Public institutions with qualified reports, it doesn't matter to them because it goes on business as usual. Their lenders are usually the government or pension funds, etc. But for publicly traded company, it's a completely different ballgame.
Absolutely.
We simply cannot have a qualified report, and that's why we're fighting this tooth and nail.
What percentage of your shareholding is on the float?
36%. I'm speaking under correction, but around 36%.
All right, so it's material. It's
material. It's a
big chunk of your shareholders sit in a publicly traded space.
Yeah, we've got 3,000 public shareholders, and the majority of them sits in Europe and the USA, where we've got, funds like Sequoia, MIT, Notre Dame. These are serious institutions with, that manage billions of dollars all over the company that's invested in Trustco. So a qualified audit report is devastating to us. So I hope that gives a bit of perspective why we fight this so tooth and nail.
Absolutely. Okay, so what happens next? You've won this. You've created an interdict to stop the suspension on trading in shares.
Yeah.
What happens next?
So on the 5th of September, I think the hearing will go full circle.
That is with the High Court.
That's with the High Court in South Africa. And I'll take a step back here and explain why the interdict is so important, because in order to get granted a urgent interdict, the court must look at your prospects of success of your overhanging or review application. And that's why this one is so important to us. What happens next? Business as usual. We must continue with operating our businesses. We must make sure that the financial viability of our businesses grows and continues from here on. What happens on the top level, on a compliance level, and with the share price and listings, that will follow its natural course. The board will at some point decide whether a listing on the JSE is still as efficient as we want it to be or as it was in the past, and we'll take a decision going from there.
Trustco naturally listed on a couple of bourses, including the local one. Has the local bourse paid any attention to this issue?
So the structure is set up like this. We've got a primary listing on the JSE, secondary listing on the Namibian Stock Exchange, and secondary listings on the OTCQX in New York. So what happens is the local listings follow, of course, whatever happens the secondary listings follow what happens on the primary listing. So whatever happens on the primary listing will be duplicated on the secondary listing. I'm sure the local stock exchanges and all others have taken notice because it's a critical thing. But as soon as you want to make a move on your primary stock exchange, you will have to inform your secondary stock exchanges as well.
Okay. Right. So let's, good luck with the hearing. I did note that the JSE was ordered to pay costs for the interdict. So that's
always a good one.
Some satisfaction.
Oh, yes.
Just before we move on, how does this affect the relationship with the JSE? Naturally, a marketplace is a good place to have a good relationship with. This must muddy it a little bit.
It's dynamic and troublesome at the best of days. I can tell you that. Maybe I can take a chance here to say that no public company wants to fight in an open forum in a high court with the regulators that it engage with, but simply for the fact because the market sees the regulator generally as correct. They've got 114 years of experience. They've got the best in the world, etc., etc. But there comes a point in time where a company cannot simply just roll over and accept what has been done for the past 100 years versus what is right. So the relationship is not great. Can we patch it up? It's possible. We'll see.
And I noted in the articles and in the sense around the initial judgment, you guys are saying, well, you didn't have any IFRS experts at the tribunal that was dealing with an IFRS issue. That's quite straightforward, right?
It's a critical point. And I mean, if you think about it, we have independent IFRS advisors that is accredited by the JSE to advisors on these specific topics. And the JSE goes against their own accredited advisors. So you can imagine the lines where the law and accounting merge is quite a special one. You've got specialized litigators or legal professionals and accounting professionals. And the one typically doesn't want to rule over the territory or step in the territory of the other. It's practice, and we've seen it happen many times. But the first ruling we got from the tribunal, not a single IFRS expert, I'm not even talking about expert, I mean anyone that's got accounting knowledge was on that tribunal. And the chair of the tribunal acknowledged that in his public record. He said, we simply do not have the skills to deal with this matter. So it's something that needs to be addressed.
Good luck with the hearing. Let's move on to perhaps what could be good news. I picked up while I was just doing a bit of background reading on the tribunal issue, on the sense that a term sheet has been entered into in terms of which SJSL Investments Limited shall have the option to become a 70% shareholder in Maya Mining. And this is, of course, the diamond mine in Sierra Leone, for a total subscription amount for up to $50 million. This is good news.
Yeah, absolutely. It's major for us. We've built the mine. We've taken the risk of Trustco Capital over the past 4 years to build the mine in Sierra Leone. We spend about $60 million US to bring that mine up to production, get the mining licenses in place. And now we've brought in a private equity fund to upscale it to significant to its commercial value at the end. So it's great news for us. It's typical Trustco style business where we take an asset or we acquire an asset, we build it up and bring in a partner and bring it to market.
It also raises a lot of cash, around about 800 million Namibia dollars. Are you taking that money off the table, or is that pouring back into the big hole that a mine can be?
No. So that money comes back to the group. That's basically a recovery of our investment that we've done over the past 3 years. But we are an investment group. You don't want to sit on cash. Cash in the bank simply runs down over time. So we'll find a place to park it.
Okay. And in between, you guys can buy lunch again.
That's a good point.
I see the timelines on this are fairly tight, running through August and September. Typically for a transaction of this size, that seems like there's a whole lot of conditions precedent that happen very quickly, and then they get an option to continue on.
Yeah.
So that it's not the 800 million up front. It'll come in a number of tranches.
Correct. And some of those tranches we actually already received. Some of the CPs we've already ticked. We've gone through the financial due diligence, the legal due diligence. The next big step is the geology due diligence on the ground, which we've also passed. So some of that funding has already flown. I think there's 7 steps, if I'm not mistaken, of tranches, and the first 4 we've already received, and we've already ticked those boxes. So typically these transactions take about 18 months to complete in full circle. We already down the line, about 12 months of that work has been done prior to the announcement. But we've crossed that Rubicon where we have to make an announcement where we see the transactions becoming certain. So we passed that line.
Well, good news. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the thousands of carats that mine will continue to produce for both you and your shareholders.
Absolutely.
Quinton, we'll catch up soon. There's lots to talk about in Trustco, and you're welcome back anytime. So thanks for popping in and clarifying. We'll touch in after the 5th and hear how things went.
Happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
That's Quinton van Rooyen Jr, the Deputy Group CEO of Trustco, talking about a victory against the JSE earlier this week, where an interdict was successful in stopping the JSE from suspending trading in shares in Trustco. Trustco up yesterday, but down again in early trading. That's this evening's Market Watch here on the Business Report.
If you missed the Business Report live, but don't want to miss out on some of the most up-to-date economic, financial, business news, and so much more, you can catch up wherever it suits you by visiting the podcast page on nova.com.na.